Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something you probably interact with every single day. But honestly, you might just be taking it for granted. We are unpacking the true anatomy of office management. So whether you're a seasoned executive running the whole show or a new hire just stepping into the professional world, we're going to completely redefine how you view the space where you work. Let me kick things off with a question that might just flip your perspective a bit. What is the actual true center of an organization? When someone says the word office, what pops into your head? Probably the sensory stuff, right? The hum of the fluorescent lights, the endless pinging of chat notifications, rows of desks, ringing phones, massive stacks of paperwork. It is so incredibly easy to mistake the physical floor for the actual operational core. You might just think of it as a backdrop, right? A container where the real work of building products or selling services happens. But what if the office isn't just a container? What if it's actually the most vital driving organ of the entire enterprise? Well, here's the reality. The office is literally the human brain of the business. Just like your own brain controls every single movement, thought, and subconscious function of your body, the office controls the complex, everyday activities of an organization. Think of it like a central nervous system. Every email sent, every memo drafted, every single directive issued, it's essentially an electrical signal traveling down a synapse. It keeps the company's various limbs, its departments, moving in perfect synchronization. It's where raw, messy information gets collected, processed into actual strategy, and then disseminated. It is the central intelligence that ensures every other part of the company can actually function, adapt, and survive. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to look at the organizational brain, the objectives of office management, why it actually matters so much, its core functions, and finally, we'll wrap up with the sheer power of planning. All right, let's jump right into section 1. The organizational brain, the central intelligence of any operation. Management expert George R. Terry really hit the nail on the head here. He says office management provides centralized guidance to direct individual efforts toward common goals. And if you think about it, that makes total sense. Imagine 50 incredibly brilliant, highly capable people walking into a building and just starting to work on whatever they think is best, with zero centralized guidance. That's not a company. That's just a crowd. Office management is about taking all of those scattered, diverse human efforts and directing them with absolute laser precision toward a shared goal. It's that invisible, organizing force that magically turns chaos and individual ambition into synchronized collective action. Which leads us perfectly into section 2, Objectives of Office Management, where we set the goals of this central nervous system. An office really runs on this vast, interconnected network of objectives. And honestly, every single node is absolutely crucial. Take communication flow, for example. That's not just some corporate buzzword. Without a dedicated effort to manage how information actually travels, a company risks total organizational paralysis. If the sales team has zero clue what the engineering team is building, the whole system just grinds to a halt. Another massive objective? Developing human resources and building internal relations. The office is tasked with creating an environment that actually supports the people doing the work, everything from resolving disputes to fostering collaboration. And all of these nodes, they feed directly back into the ultimate non-negotiable goal: overall organizational success. Now, a huge part of hitting those objectives comes down to the optimum utilization of resources. But to really get that, we have to talk about efficiency versus effectiveness, because they are definitely not the same thing. Think of it like this. Efficiency is figuring out how to print 10,000 pages using only half an ink cartridge. It's about getting maximum outputs with minimum inputs, doing things the right way. But effectiveness is making sure those 10,000 pages are actually the correct, error-free reports that are desperately needed for tomorrow morning's board meeting. It's about doing the right things and getting them done on time. A highly functioning organizational brain guarantees both. It saves the ink and it nails the presentation. So how does all this high-level theory actually look on the ground? Well, everyday office realities cover a massive spectrum. On one hand, it's making sure the receptionist warmly greets a key visitor to set the vibe for a major partnership. It's answering phones quickly so clients feel valued. It's the seemingly mundane stuff, like making sure there's copier paper, functioning Wi-Fi, and definitely coffee in the break room. But then it violently shifts to absolute legal and physical criticalities. Office management is suddenly responsible for workplace safety, maintaining fire extinguishers, making sure emergency exits are actually clear, and legally registering the entire fleet of company vehicles.
It spans from the smallest creature comforts to the legal liability of the entire enterprise.
But what happens if all of that fails? If the center cannot hold? Let's move to Section 3, Why Office Management Matters, and its impact on the organizational body. The strategic importance here? It's off the charts. It literally dictates whether a business survives. For starters, good management actively slashes operating costs. And I don't mean buying cheaper pens. I'm talking about auditing redundant software subscriptions, consolidating vendor contracts, and killing catastrophic workflow bottlenecks. But even cooler is the office's role as a change agent. Let's say leadership rolls out this massive new AI tool. Employees are naturally going to resist that change. It is the office management structure that coordinates the training, eases the transition, and helps the organization actually survive that shift. Plus, a seamless, well-run environment is exactly what attracts top talent. People don't want to work where they have to fight the printer for 20 minutes every single day, right? Good management removes the friction, which makes your best employees actually want to stay. Okay, so we know why it's a big deal. But how does an office actually pull this off? Let's check out Section 4, Core Functions and Activities, the fundamental pillars of management. Management really boils down to 4 main functions: planning, organizing, coordinating, and controlling. We'll get to planning in just a sec, but let's unpack the other 3 because they are the absolute engine of the business. First, organizing. This is all about structure. Once a plan is set, you have to organize the resources to actually pull it off. This means defining exactly who is responsible for what, setting up clear reporting lines, and grouping tasks. It answers the question, how do we arrange our people and tools to actually get this done? Then comes coordinating, which honestly might be the hardest one of all. Coordinating is the glue. It's the active process of preventing silos. It makes sure the marketing team isn't launching a massive promo campaign for a product that the manufacturing team hasn't even finished building yet. It synchronizes all these disparate parts so they move as a single unified force. Finally, you've got controlling. This is your ultimate reality check. It acts like a thermostat for the business. The controlling function constantly measures real-world performance and compares it directly against the original goals. If sales are down 20% from the projection, the controlling function spots it and forces management to course correct before the whole thing crashes. These 3, organizing, coordinating, and controlling, they form this continuous, unbreakable loop of execution. But none of that execution matters if you're running full speed in the completely wrong direction. Which brings us to our final section, Section 5, the power of planning. Planning is essentially your organizational crystal ball. It is the absolute primary function because it has to happen before anything else we just talked about. It's a deeply analytical, rational process. Instead of just reacting to what the market is doing, planning is the discipline of deciding in advance exactly what needs to be done, when, how, where, and by whom. Before a single dollar is spent or a single person is hired, planning serves as the architectural blueprint for the entire future of the office. Think of where you are right now as point A and your big, ambitious goal as point B. Between those 2 points, it's just a giant, terrifying gap of uncertainty and risk. Well, planning is the exact bridge that gets you across that gap. It methodically reduces uncertainty step by step. It gives a results-driven direction for the team to follow, and it establishes the exact standards we're going to use later during that controlling phase to figure out if we actually succeeded. But building that bridge is risky business. A plan can look totally flawless on paper, but instantly fall apart if it's based on bad information. Plus, let's be real, deep planning takes a ton of time and it's expensive. But the absolute biggest danger? Inflexibility. A highly detailed plan can accidentally turn into a straitjacket. If you spend 6 months planning a product launch, but suddenly a global supply chain crisis hits, or a competitor completely shifts the market overnight, those uncontrollable external factors, your rigid blueprint becomes your biggest liability. You have to plan, but you absolutely must plan to adapt. So how do you avoid those traps? The planning evaluation process has to be rigorous. You can't just run with the very first idea that sounds good in a Tuesday morning meeting. First, you have to develop real alternatives. You build multiple paths to the goal. Then, you ruthlessly stress test them. You weigh the financial costs against the projected benefits, you assess the risks, and you measure them against what your organization can actually handle. Finally, after tearing every option apart, you select the optimum course of action. It's an incredibly demanding task that literally sets the stage for the survival of the business. So, taking all of this in, based on everything we've gone through today, I want you to take a really hard look at your own workplace.
Think about the communication flow, the strength of the planning, the coordination between departments, and those everyday realities. How healthy is your organization's brain? Is it firing on all cylinders, or is it maybe time for a serious operational checkup? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. See you next time.